Now, today I'm going to be showing you how to solder a copper pipe. Um, Now, if you have a pipe burst, there's a good chance it's going to look like this. First thing you want to do is you want to take something sandpaper, pretty good grit, just to get the big chunks of previous solder off and clean it, give it a nice surface for the new solder to try to seal to, and just work at it. Now you can continue to do this with just sandpaper, but I recommend to use the tool that you'll see next. Now, this tool is pretty simple. You just take the male end of the pipe and you put it inside of the female part of the tool, and it just has bristles in there that are able to scrub residue and solder off. So, what you do is you just put it in there, you twist it around, and it cleans it off. Once you get it, you've been going at it a little bit, you just clean off the copper like you see here, and you may actually have to go back at it with a little bit of sandpaper and just to make sure you get as much solder off. And you can see that we kind of leave the solder that's closest to the pipe off because that pipe we know doesn't insert into that elbow that far, so there's no reason that we have to get that solder off. But the part that is for sure going to be have solder on it, you want to make sure it's as clean as possible. Now for the female, you take a bristled brush, the bristled part of that tool, and you put it in there, and it can be kind of a tight fit usually because usually they don't plan to have to fix plumbing, so they like to put it in tight spaces. So what you want to just put it in there and twist. You can see I can't really get a whole lot of motion in it, but you still any twisting does better than no twisting. So you just want to keep going at that, trying to get as much that old solder out as possible. Because like I said, it's just about getting that as clean as possible. So you just want to get all that old solder off there. Next thing, once you have both sides clean, you want to grab the flux, which is pretty much just primer. If you were painting, it would be primer. It helps the surface be able to accept the solder much easier. So you take the flux and you go ahead and wipe it around the outside of the male pipe and the inside of the female pipe, just to coat. You just want a nice even coat on it. You don't really want to have it like dripping in flux. That doesn't really help anything. You just want to have a nice layer on it and to make sure that it will definitely help accept the solder you're going to be putting on it. Once you have it fluxed, you want to go ahead and insert the female into the male and make sure it's pushed in as far as possible. You may want to either pull, in this case, it has an elbow. You may want to pull the female or just the elbow in general more into the pipe, or the pipe push it more into the elbow. Now you can see whenever we pushed up, a little bit of dust and debris fell down. That is something you really want to avoid. The last thing you want is a whole bunch of dirt falling on top of this joint and preventing solder from bonding to one part or another. So this is something to keep in mind. Now, if you are lucky enough to actually have the joint you're trying to solder not next to a piece of framing or a bunch of insulation like this, you can actually heat the joint directly and get the joint much hotter, much faster, and make it accept solder faster. The problem here is you can see we're having to heat it pretty far away from the joint because we're trying to avoid the flame getting too heavy on that wood or too heavy on the insulation. So what you want to do is, now that it's fluxed, the goal is to just heat up the copper pipe as much as possible and get as much heat on that joint. Now, like I said, we can't get direct heat on that joint, which was unfortunate in this case. So we just had to heat up the pipe and get enough to transfer through, which took a while. Now you can see our joint wasn't really the cleanest. We did put a little bit on there, but with the heat so far away, it's hard to get it hot enough to accept solder the way it should. But what you can do to make sure if it's hot enough or not is the part that's not directly touching flame. Let's say, like right now, we're heating the bottom. You put it on the back side, and if it melts the solder and tries to pull it around, it's pretty close to hot enough, and it will work to create a decent joint. Again, preferably you want the heat directly on the joint to get it as hot as possible, but you can make it happen like this. So we just drop the solder on the back and it's sucked around. You can also, once the solder is on there, you can take the torch again, kind of go around to heat it all up, and the flux will continue to try to pull the solder in. And now that you've done that, you're pretty much done. Just turn your water on and see if it leaks. Now, unfortunately, at this house, this is my friend's new house he got. You can see here we had to find a few more leaks. There was one that we fixed that was upstairs in the bathroom. We did rip out the tile. Here's one that's down here inside of the laundry room. We had to tear out the whole wall to find. The actual pipe actually did burst, not just a joint break back there. And this one is in the lower bathroom. But I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helped you out. Leave a like if it did, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll go ahead and leave you with us testing the water.
Alright, whoa! Whoa!